She didn't bother to knock. She didn't even shout a warning. She simply crashed through my cabin door with the croquet mallet and let out a scream sharp enough to crack crystal. Citizen's arrest. You violate Code 12A. I was lounging in my bathrobe, midway through a bowl of cereal. The spoon hovered in midair as wood fragments rained across the kitchen floor. She jabbed a finger at me like I was some notorious fugitive, and proclaimed with over-the-top fury, "Unauthorized occupancy." Then my weekend visitor, quiet woman nursing a mug of coffee by the fireplace, rose slowly and said in a steady, even voice, "Ma'am, you've just committed felony breaking and entering." What this woman didn't realize was that my guest was a federal prosecutor. I'm Paul Denton, 42 years old, proud owner of a weathered, largely overlooked lake cabin in Misty Hollow Landing. By day, I'm a tech consultant. By disposition, an introvert. The cabin serves as my sanctuary from the relentless buzz of my professional life. No visible neighbors, no road noise, no interruptions. Just me, the water, and the random deer that strolls across the yard. That tranquil setup ended the moment the Misty Hollow HOA fell under the control of Delora Quinn, who demanded to be addressed as Chief Compliance Officer and handed out slick brochures called Civic Harmony through rigorous oversight. She wore laminated ID badges dangling from her neck like combat medals, carried a whistle she'd blast at any hint of a rule breach, and genuinely believed she held the power to make arrests on private land. The woman stood 5'2", of pure administrative rage, topped with a stiff dome of bleached blonde hair that defied even gale force gusts. She piloted a golf cart fitted with a siren and crowned with a flashing light bar that she'd triggered during her round-the-clock patrols. Delora's vendetta against me started small when she noticed smoke rising from my chimney on a weekday afternoon. She stormed up to my door, clutching a clipboard, and declared with solemn gravity, "Unauthorized heating exhaust detected. This demands immediate documentation." I attempted to explain that fireplaces were perfectly legal. She answered by issuing a ticket for argumentative conduct toward Thea Authority. What followed was an avalanche of fines that would embarrass even the strictest traffic court. My mailbox's plain font earned a $50 penalty, apparently breaching subsection 3.2 of the Aesthetic Uniformity Standards. Then came penalties for suspicious weekday presence. Since remote work was evidently an offense against suburban norms, my favorite was the $75 citation for exterior odors indicative of bacon grease, labeled as olfactory pollution. She attempted to deem my cabin abandoned despite my regular visits, using the absence of seasonal decorative flags as proof of abandonment. When that failed, she upgraded to slapping a condemned notice on my front window. Not a standard sticker. Either this garish creation involved glitter glue and hand-sketched flames encircling the word condemned in what looked like crayon scrawls. I filed formal appeals. She countered by inventing new procedures that made forms available only during a 2-hour slot on alternating Thursdays. I showed up at an HOA meeting to air my grievances. She had me removed for excessive reliance on logic during the designated emotional testimony period. That's when I chose to call in backup. I invited my old college friend, Lauren Veg, for a weekend stay at the cabin. Lauren was a federal prosecutor based in Washington, D.C., with expertise in civil rights abuses and overreaches of authority. I thought having a legal professional witness Stadler's campaign of harassment could strengthen my position. Lauren pulled in Friday evening in her unassuming sedan, wearing jeans and a Georgetown law hoodie. She blended right in as an ordinary guest, which was precisely the plan. We passed Saturday compiling evidence of the absurd violations, snapping photos of the glitter-encrusted condemned sign, and capturing audio of Delora's golf cart sirens during her hourly circuits. Delora must have been spying with binoculars, because the moment she spotted Lauren's arrival, she concluded something sinister was afoot. She left 3 increasingly frantic voicemails that night. The last one came in a hushed, dramatic whisper. "I know exactly what you're up to, Denton. Harboring fugitives is a federal offense. I've notified my network." Her network consisted of a Facebook group named Neighborhood Watch Warriors, 7 members total. 5 of them her own sock puppet accounts. Sunday morning brought an eerie calm. No wailing sirens. No bullhorn lectures on proper trash bin alignment. Lauren and I were savoring a quiet breakfast when we heard the telltale roar of a golf cart being revved like a drag racer. Then came the impact. My sturdy oak door, which had endured half a century of mountain weather, burst inward as Delora barreled through, swinging the croquet mallet like a siege weapon. Splinters sprayed across the kitchen as she planted herself in the doorway, panting wildly, eyes blazing. Citizens arrest. She bellowed with the zeal of an overzealous movie cop. You're violating Code 12, a suspicious habitation by outsiders. I remained seated in my bathrobe, a Fruit Loop bobbing untouched in the milk, struggling to comprehend that my door was now firewood and a pint-sized tyrant stood in my kitchen brandishing lawn game gear. Lauren set her coffee down with measured precision and stood. She drew her federal prosecutor's badge from her pocket and held it steady at eye level. Her tone carried the quiet command honed from years of confronting real offenders in court. Ma'am, I need you to stop talking and listen closely. You've just committed several felonies, including breaking and entering, property destruction, and attempted unlawful detention. Under what legal authority do you believe you can restrain this man? Delora's gaze flicked between the badge and her mallet, as though calculating her next move. She puffed herself up and announced with unfounded assurance. HOA Article 12 explicitly authorizes immediate intervention by designated compliance officers for suspicious habitation by outsiders. Lauren cocked her head slightly the way a predator regards particularly dim prey. That's not law. That's barely coherent. You've violated actual federal statutes, not imaginary community bylaws. I recommend you take a seat while we resolve this. Delora refused to sit. Instead, she hoisted the mallet higher and shrieked with the fervor of someone completely unmoored from reality. I am the law in Misty Hollow. You have no jurisdiction here. Then she committed the blunder that would dismantle her little empire. She surged forward and lunged for Lauren's phone, evidently intending to eliminate proof of her dramatic entry. Lauren, accustomed to far more threatening adversaries, merely sidestepped, allowing Delora's own momentum to propel her headlong into my kitchen table. The impact was nothing short of epic. Delora tumbled in a chaotic heap of arms, legs, and breakfast chaos, the croquet mallet skittering noisily across the floor. She sprawled there, drenched in Fruit Loops and splashed orange juice, ranting incoherently about vast conspiracies and grave infringements on HOA sovereignty. Lauren coolly punched in 911 while I recorded the wreckage on my phone. Her report was concise and authoritative. This is Federal Prosecutor Lauren Vega, badge number 4729. I require deputies at 1421 Lakeside Drive right away. We have a subject who forcibly entered a home and tried to unlawfully restrain the owner. Less than 20 minutes later, 2 sheriff's deputies from the county pulled up. They took in the mess with the resigned looks of cops who'd handled HOA nonsense plenty of times, though even they raised eyebrows at the obliterated door and the sparkly glitter glue condemned sign. The veteran deputy, a guy with 3 decades of suburban absurdity on his resume, eyed Delora and asked in a weary drawl, "Ma'am, do you possess any real law enforcement powers?" Delora, still sticky with juice, hauled herself upright to her maximum stature and proclaimed with baseless swagger, "I am the duly elected Chief Compliance Officer of the Misty Hollow Homeowners Association." The deputy absorbed that with a slow nod. "And that entitles you to smash doors and attack residents." "I was executing a legitimate citizen's arrest pursuant to HOA Article 12A, she maintained, brandishing her laminated badges like trophies. The junior deputy barely stifled a laugh. "Ma'am, HOA bylaws don't override criminal law. What you've done amounts to breaking and entering, property destruction, and attempted false imprisonment. Those are genuine felonies with genuine penalties." Lauren passed over her phone loaded with video proof capturing Delora's explosive entry and her snatch at the device. The gaudy condemned sticker, now proof of ongoing harassment, was meticulously photographed and sealed in an evidence bag. As the cuffs clicked on, Delora howled with the panic of a ruler seeing her throne collapse. This is merely a governance mix-up. I'm protecting property values. I am the HOA. The senior deputy guided her into the cruiser and delivered the closer. Ma'am, this is the real world, not your private fiefdom. Word of Delora's arrest raced through Misty Hollow quicker than her souped-up golf cart. By afternoon, an emergency HOA meeting was convened. Lauren and I showed up, she in her formal role as eyewitness to several offenses, me as the target of Delora's climactic meltdown. The gathering took place in the community center, a drab hall reeking of stale coffee and dashed hopes. Neighbors crammed the space, many gripping their own stacks of absurd tickets and warnings. The vice president, a jittery accountant named Harold Payton, banged the gavel with trembling fingers. We're assembled to discuss the, event at Mr. Denton's property and to decide on the immediate status of our current president, Harold managed. One after another, residents rose to recount their ordeals. The senior lady from Pine Street was penalized for overly cheerful garden gnomes. The newlyweds dinged for excessive PDA while simply holding hands on their front porch. The veteran was slapped with a notice for an American flag deemed too vigorously patriotic. When the vote came, it was overwhelming. 22 in favor of instant removal, 0 for keeping her, and 1 abstention from Delora's own husband, who'd slipped out midway, grumbling about finally enjoying some quiet. But community reckoning was only the start of Delora's downfall. The criminal charges were substantial: breaking and entering, criminal trespass, vandalism, attempted false arrest, and assault. The district attorney, armed with Lauren's footage and a flood of neighbor complaints, elected to prosecute every count. At arraignment, Delora showed up in her official HOA blazer, still clinging to vanished power. As the judge listed the charges, she tried to interject with an explanation of Code 12A. The judge, a no-nonsense woman fed up with privileged defendants, silenced her with a firm gavel strike. Miss Quinn, you are not charged with breaching HOA policy. You are charged with committing actual crimes. Do you grasp the distinction? Delora's public defender, looking like he'd prefer dental surgery, leaned in with frantic advice. She eventually muttered, "Yes, Your Honor." The trial was straightforward. The video was devastating, depicting Delora's rampage and near assault. Witnesses described her long-term intimidation tactics. The glitter glue sign stared as prime evidence of targeted harassment against me. Lauren's testimony was surgical, outlining each statute violated, every right trampled, and the serious federal ramifications of lunging at a U.S. prosecutor. The judge mandated a psychological assessment, observing that anyone convinced HOA rules conferred arrest authority clearly required intervention. The report confirmed the obvious: Delora grappled with extreme control obsessions and authority delusions, amplified by the petty power of her HOA role. Ultimately, she was found guilty on every charge. The judge, perhaps showing mercy towards someone so profoundly unhinged, imposed 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service specifically assisting seniors with yard and home upkeep plus required anger management counseling. She was further directed to cover full restitution for my door and compensation for emotional distress, totaling $12,000. When the figure was read aloud, Delora's complexion cycled through furious reds and purples before landing on ashen shock. 12,000. She squawked in outright horror.